Hello everybody and welcome to the deck retrospective as we just finished recording our Edge of the Earth campaign, but we're going to keep spoilers out of this for how it goes. But you can find the final episode coming up on the channel pretty soon. But here, as we always like to do, is we like to go into the final scenario with a deck retrospective here, looking back, talking about what worked, what didn't. So Eric, I'm going to start with you, and you can talk about your Darrell Simmons deck.
Yeah, so first off, I was playing Daryl Simmons. The big focus of him was starting with the Kodak in play. During a skill test, I can spend one evidence to reduce the difficulty of a test by 2. So I decided to try and build around that to focus on reducing shroud value to 0 and then trying to get extra value out of it. I didn't actually find it worked particularly well, which is to say that I think every piece of my deck individually was really strong and really good. I had a very strong Seeker deck, but actually getting it to 0 and then automatically passing tests didn't happen super often to me over the course of the campaign. And it didn't end up mattering because every individual piece of the reduce shroud value ended up kind of just being good on its own.
Yeah, brought something to the table.
Yeah, so started with 2 upgraded old key rings. So they get -2 shroud for the investigation. If I succeed, remove it, and if the test difficulty is 0, discover an additional clue. So I just liked those. They were just good to have. They're part of the overall goal. With the evidence, in theory, you can reduce it to 4, and then just get those automatic additional clues.
Yeah.
Upgraded flashlight, same direction, just reducing shroud as often as possible, was largely there to kind of protect for when I didn't have evidence and stuff like that, and also just to try to grind value out.
Yep.
Matchbox, unupgraded. It's also just there to help further reduce shroud. In theory, with a well set up deck space, I could be going...
Yeah, Russ has been fed. Yeah, he's just asking for food because he knows it works. Okay. Yeah. Do not believe his lies.
Just more shroud reduction value, and it didn't take up a hand slot, which is a problem I had, which is just that everything I had took up hand slots.
Yeah. Yeah, you got a lot of competitive assets throughout this whole thing as well.
Yeah, exactly. The Hawkeye folding camera was just really, really good for the whole idea that my deck was often picking up multiple clues if it could, trying to empty as fast as possible, and I was largely focused on using the Hawkeye folding camera as a source of evidence.
Yes.
It wasn't actually necessarily there to get its benefits, which were good, but it was largely there to help fuel more shroud reduction.
Yeah.
Going along with that exact same style was the empirical hypothesis, which I ended up upgrading pretty aggressively. I would have probably done different upgrades. But largely it was there just to try and generate even further evidence that I could use to even further feed, as well as potentially card draw if I desperately needed that, although I ended up finding I didn't really use that ability very often. I got field research, which was enter a location with 3 or more shroud. That one's great. I got trial and error. You are dealt damage or horror. Not that great. Your goal is not to do it.
Yeah.
And those were the only 2 I upgraded.
Yeah.
There are others I probably would have done, but I do think empirical hypothesis is a really good part of this deck. To benefit from getting the shroud to 0, I had put in 2 shadow lights, which was basically just to super turbocharge clues, and it worked great every time I fired it.
Yes.
It felt really, really strong and really, really powerful. I will say, though, as is often a common mistake of mine, I don't necessarily think I ever paid for it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, thinking back to the campaign, I was like, I forgot that this costs 2.
Yeah.
I don't know that I ever paid 2 for it. I think I just played it.
You know, sometimes we want to get stuff for free and you just got to take it.
You just got to do it.
Yeah.
Exploit weakness was another get things to 0. It made flashlight do a lot of good double duty. Once again, made the clues do double duty. And then Professor William Webb was largely just there to get my flashlights back and my matchboxes.
I don't think you ever really played him.
I don't think ever played him. I think I did once, and then he just died to soak, and I was like, that's his job.
Yeah.
I actually mostly ended up playing him for the
icons.
For the double icon.
Yeah.
But in theory, he was there if my deck ever needed it.
Yeah.
Because of Justin's deck loop, we ended up not having to do that.
Yes, I did kind of nullify your deck's goal a little bit.
Yeah.
By being able to boost up your story assets. Because, like, Edge of the Earth has very good story assets. and like the Kensler's Log and
The crystals.
the crystals, kind of just like, why do anything else when you can just get those, right?
Yeah, so that I will talk about that a little bit, but I think one of the reasons my deck failed to fire was because I ended up with so many good story assets that aside from getting evidence, there was not really a lot of point to playing the internal loop of my deck.
Yeah.
Especially when you were allowing me to do like Kensler 6 or 7 times.
Yeah.
So deduction was there just because deduction is a good card and you should always be running it, and it will always get one additional clue. Which is great with this deck, often trying to turbocharge how many clues I'm getting. Ideally 4 clues a turn if I can. More if possible. 5, 6.
Yeah, I mean, at if you're at like 2 players, if you're getting 3 clues a turn, you're ahead tempo, so like that's really good.
Yeah, exactly.
And you were getting that quite consistently, especially in the last few scenarios.
I probably needed more economy than I thought I did because, I wasn't paying for cards. But that's kind of what Crack the Case was for, especially with being able to ping down shroud locations. It turned high shroud locations into potential high value locations for me to focus on, which was good.
Yep.
Same with Burning the Midnight Oil. It's just a good card. Yep. It didn't actually interact well with a lot of my deck, but there was always once or twice where like a 3 clue location, I'd drop it to 2, and then I would just need to play a standard investigate, and that's where Burning the Midnight Oil was just a little bit of extra econ.
Yeah, you rarely get your econ fitting with your deck's goal. Like when it does, it's really nice, but if your econ's good, your econ's just good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Contemplative was once again just another goal at generating as many clues as possible in a single turn. Like it was basically just more deductive. That's all it was.
Yeah.
So then we got into sort of just the value cards of my deck. These are the ones that managed to survive to the very end. And again, almost never played them because it turns out my deck didn't need them, especially with Justin supercharging it. I had 2 Luckies, which are just more card draw. They self-replace. They also guarantee you passing a card. In theory, with Empirical Hypothesis, they help trigger that. I did upgrade them. I ultimately didn't end up needing them or using them very often. I had 2 Take Hearts just because I love Take Heart. It's a big crutch of mine, but
It's a good card. It's a good card.
I like being able to be like, oh, something bad happened. Nah, it was actually that one failed action was actually 4 basic actions for you.
It was a double upkeep.
Yeah. And then I just had 2 Perceptions.
Yeah.
Perception is good.
So let me ask, what do you think you would do differently if you revisited the deck in an effort to achieve the goal at playing the tested 0 archetype?
Ooh, I think I would need more cards that focused on getting to 0. I don't know if there are more. I might have the whole package.
There are a few.
Okay.
I think what is also is... so there's like the cheesy thing you do, because you had the old keyring. Was it level 3?
Yes.
Yeah, so like... You played like the fair version of the deck, trying to use like the William Webb to get the stuff back. Like people generally use scavenging for those decks to go really try hard. But like I'm trying to think of in the idea of staying in the Eric sphere where it's not like going crazy hard. I think what you would probably want is you would want resourcefuls in your deck.
Yeah.
Because you could use those to grab your Shadow Lights back, because you even said those were the cards that felt like the biggest payoff. And that's kind of what this is also like, not even a lesson just specifically for you, for the people talking, like people watching, is in order to really pay off to your archetype, you need like redundancy for that archetype. It doesn't necessarily need to be more cards in the archetype, but how can I get those cards more consistently or potentially even play them multiple times? Because like you were kind of playing, I think the reason why you feel like your deck didn't achieve the goal is because you were kind of always playing with what your deck gave you. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but because I think your deck was successful, I think you played very well with the tools that you got, but it was basically like roll the die and we got a different Daryl every game. Right?
Oh, yeah.
But then you look at like my kind of deck, and mine was looking to do one thing. And that's obviously deck preference when you're building, but it's one of those things where like redundancy on card draw, like if some of those other effects were card draw, I think that would be like a way that you could do that, or like finding recursion to recur your big splashy payoff cards, because all archetypes are, how do you get your payoff as much as possible?
Yeah, I will say for this, what I really realized was that I was incredibly short on card draw. This deck basically has none. Like it requires you to fail to get card draw effectively.
Yeah.
And that was probably one of its biggest weaknesses, is card draw is its own form of redundancy because you just draw into the cards you want or reshuffle your deck,
100%.
which is fine.
Yeah.
The other thing I did too was I absolutely loaded it with assets and Tekolilis, and so that also just kind of weakened
slowed you
my
down.
deck.
Yeah. And like I said, I don't think there was any. I think your deck was good, and I think you piloted it very well. I think that is what we can point to as the issue of why it felt like you were playing you wouldn't achieve your archetype goal. But I do want to set out a challenge for you for the next campaign. I want you to put an ally in your deck and consistently play that ally. Because allies are very powerful, but I feel like they often, you are more scared of you dying, so you kill them too early.
Yes.
If that makes sense. So I feel like, be like me. Ask, what's the game going to do? Kill me? And there's a chance it can. But the thing is, your ally will die before you no matter what, but you don't need to rush to get there.
It's fair.
And I think that would be a fun little challenge to even start your deck with an ally. Go look through all the allies and be like, which one do you want to build with? And then be like, okay, what can we do around this
Build
guy?
around that. I actually think that's a fabulous idea, and I would love to try it because absolutely.
Yep.
I've played 2 investigators now whose goal is throwaway allies, and I absolutely locked into that.
Yes, yeah. All right, I played Norman Withers, and I actually really enjoyed reading the comments for our first deck building. When I said at the start I was going to play a try-hard deck, and then just in 5 seconds later, I think I'm going to play Combat Norman Withers, which I have never brought to a campaign, and I've never seen anyone bring it to a campaign. And then also someone said Justin's going to play try-hard Norman Withers, and I was like, I'm going to be the main fighter, and I had 2 Brand of Cthuggas in my deck. I had 12 points of damage in my entire deck. So it was a little bit of a risk, especially considering that Edge of the Earth actually is a pretty enemy-heavy campaign. Luckily, Norman Withers has the advantage in Edge of the Earth where he doesn't actually spend time drawing Tekolilis. We noticed that as well between it, because while you were, again, getting what your deck gave you and you had a lot of draws eaten by Tekolilis, that never happened to me because of my ability. So that was a big advantage in my favor. So for my combat, I ended up with 2 Brand of Cthuggas, and I've got a plan which was just filler. I wasn't really using this. I used this 1 or 2 times, but it was mostly just here to have some sort of redundancy for enemy management, but I grew out of it pretty quick. I had the 2 Transmogrifies, which popped off when they did, but overall I would say we're actually less successful in this campaign. And I don't think that's a knock against Transmogrify. That was, I think, just the reality of the situation. And then I had a Blur that I put in because I needed 1 XP at the start of the game, and I never actually really used it.
I think you played it once, and then it was immediately destroyed.
Yeah, because the thing is, I drew other things to kill with, so it was just one of those things. So I think overall, this deck is very swingy. It can go really well or really poorly, but I think overall it went very well. I think there was only maybe 2 scenarios where it didn't do its job, but overall I was actually pretty happy with this fighter deck.
The only comment I can make as somebody relying on the fighter was it felt like weirdly enough you didn't have enough ways to find the Brand of Cthugga because your whole game plan was built on it, and most of the times you found it and we were good. But yeah, there were 2 scenarios, specifically there were 3 turns where you struggling meant I was struggling.
Yeah.
But otherwise, Norman absolutely slapped.
Yes, I kind of went... you'll find I have very little card draw in my deck because his ability is card draw.
Yeah.
I know you're very much right, because I was kind of leaning entirely on the Astronomical Atlas as my method of drawing cards. Because the reality is when the Brand of Cthugga is in play, I'm never going to lose it.
No.
Right? But you're right. There were times when it just didn't show up. And maybe I needed more redundancy in order to be a more reliable fighter. But I was purposely also leaning on you as a survivor to be able to evade if we needed it. But I do think that was definitely a weakness of this deck for sure.
That said, not a huge weakness, because every time you found that Brand of Cthugga, it was basically game over for the monsters.
But definitely a noticeable thing. If you do want to bring this to a table, don't copy this list completely, because pilots make their own decisions. I felt comfortable with it, but you probably want a Shriveling in here as well. That's something I would really recommend, because I'm going all in on the Brand of Cthugga. But I also was doing the Astronomical Atlas Libra Diabon loop, specifically with a bunch of skills that turned out to be incredibly powerful for this campaign. Enrapture 2, which we knew was powerful, but I didn't know how powerful it would be when I was able to use it to warp Eric's deck to be like, no, you are not playing the archetype you wanted to play. You are playing specifically with these assets because they were very powerful. There was a point when we had 7 Frost tokens in the bag, and the only reason we were able to make it through that was because of Eric's use of the Miasma Crystal and me reloading it up with Enraptured.
Constantly reloading it.
So if you don't know the combo, you use Livre Diabon to put a card from your hand on top of your deck. So this Enraptured goes on top of my deck. I use Astronomical Atlas to put that in there from the top of my deck. I then commit it, and when I pass, it goes back into my hand, and then I do that again. Generally, people do this with Deduction, but I actually find it's more exciting to use with cards like Enraptured or Ghastly Possession with something like Brand of Cthulhu, especially because Brand of Cthulhu has 9 charges, which means this refills 4 of them. So it's very hard to run out of uses with this. I also just had a few other guts, which I should have upgraded into the upgraded guts if I had more time. Fearless to kind of keep myself alive, and a single Promise of Power that I was passing back and forth between a Diana deck and a Norman deck. And funnily enough, I on Wednesday when I was recording with Travis and Bryn, I was like, I'm just going to cut the Promise of Power, so I have to stop passing this card around. Turns out I already hafted that in Norman, so now they're each running 1, now none Promise of Powers. Okay, now we're going to get to kind of the good stuff deck. I got the 2 Thorough Inquiries, which is where my card draw was. Burst Draw 5, which I did use to good success.
Oh, hugely.
But ultimately, it's very slow, especially in 2 players. So this is where something that is faster, like even if it is just, why can't I remember the name? Deep Knowledge, in order to just draw 3 for 1 action. That's a lot better. Written in the Stars, which actually I was able to use to good success, which is fun because this card has always been kind of memey, but it was very powerful in this situation here.
In the loop that you created, that card did so much work.
Yeah, it doesn't always hit, but when it does, I think, spoilers for the final scenario, I was able to put this to great use in that one.
Oh, yeah.
Voice of Ra was my moneymaker. Research Librarian was a way for me to find my Astronomical Atlas. And then Shortcut is Shortcut. God said card. Yeah.
Yeah, incredible card.
So something that I always seem to do with you, but I never seem to do with anyone else I play with, is I put in a bunch of one-ofs that I'm not too sure why I put in. It was only one case for this one, which was Binder's Jar. I don't know why this was put in. I think I was just looking at 1XP and I was like, what the hell do I put in here? I probably should have put in Occult Theory or the skill that lets you use your brain, add your book to it. I think that probably would have actually been a much better choice now that I think about it. But I put in Binder's Jar. Just did it. Don't know why. Can't explain it, but it's here.
Did you ever actually get it to work?
I locked one enemy in the Binder's Jar.
That's right. Yeah.
And then I had some Earthly Serenity because I noticed we were starting to get a little bit close to Comfort. Edge of the Earth is actually a very swingy campaign. There's a lot of different factors that can change from a replay. So you kind of, I think, have to be adaptive. And this was my form of being adaptive. And I think it was very important.
Saved our lives. Yeah. Again, no spoilers, but there was one point where I think you emptied it twice.
Yeah.
And saved our lives.
It is. It was one of those things that we would have probably lost if the whole campaign as a whole and even individual scenarios without it in play. And then I had to deny 5 because who can say no to deny 5?
And again, went to great use, actually.
Yeah. It's just one of those things. And this is also one of those things that you're every campaign we play, I notice you improving. It's happening for sure. But there's a lot of stuff that even as a newer player, I can tell you're very scared of damage. And you're very scared of time and the Mythos phase. I can just feel it in your bones.
Yep.
And it's one of those things that as you get more knowledge of what campaigns can bring, you'll find it less scary over time and you'll feel more survivable, right? Because for me, I know that Edge of the Earth generally is going to deal me 8 damage in a scenario, right? So how do I mitigate that 8 damage? But you're it could deal me 100 damage because you have no idea, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So I totally get that. But that's one of those things that I think, because you've never replayed a campaign, you haven't had that privilege of being able to be I remember this, I know what to expect. Yeah.
I also think I often don't know what's in the Mythos deck, so after you've taken 4 horror from the Mythos deck, it doesn't come into my brain until after the scenario where I'm I didn't need to worry, because the chance of drawing the third one of those, or if there even was a third one, is incredibly unlikely. But I was just like, no, there's another 2 horror coming to get me.
No, that's a very smart way of looking at it. But again, it's easier to do that in hindsight. All right. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. We hope you enjoyed this. The final episode should be coming out in a few days, and then we have our retrospective. So we'll see you all for that. And then in a few months, Eric and I are going to be starting the Scarlet Keys, which you are not excited about.
Nope.
But it should still be a fun time, because I don't think there's a campaign that we've disliked playing.
In the very least, I will bitch about it entertainingly the whole time.
Yeah. And then we have Drowned City, and then after that, we should actually have the new Children of Blood campaign, which is going to be like, you and I are going to be playing a campaign the closest that we've ever, from my first play to your first play.
Oh,
because
so exciting.
Everything else, it's almost been 5 to 7 years on average. So, all right. Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye!